The Champions League semi-finals is only a couple of weeks away, and this is the truth, in which, from my position, is a scary truth because Arsenal, in my opinion, will be in that final. They will be playing PSG in the semi, where they will have to travel to Paris and play a game at the Emirates over two legs. But this Arsenal team have got the belief, the confidence, the quality. They must be right now on cloud nine. They've just beaten Real Madrid 5-1 on aggregate. And let's be real, the only goal they conceded was by a lapse of concentration from Saliba. You've just knocked out the Galacticos, Los Blancos, the Real Madrid, Jude Bellingham, Vinny Jr., Rodrigo, Camavinga, Kylian Mbappe, Federico Valverde. They've simply got world-class players over the pitch, but Arsenal's players are the ones that rose to the occasion. And we need to get into that because the thought of them absolute shithouses winning the Champions League petrifies me. I won't be able to show my face anywhere. Everywhere I live is surrounded by them lot. You know, singing that song about North London forever all the time. The thought of them winning the Champions League, no chance. I can't have it. Make sure you go down, smash that like button to pieces. Make sure you do hit that subscribe button. We just hit 51K, which is absolutely obscene. You know, the support on this channel has been ridiculous. Make sure you keep going down, hit that subscribe button. We're pushing our way towards 52,000 subscribers. We're about 40 away from 51.2K. But we need to talk about Arsenal versus PSG. You know, they've got Ipswich Town tomorrow in a game where, I'll be honest, I don't think any Arsenal fan really gives. I'll be honest, I don't think they care about the remainder of the Premier League season. You know, it's all about this PSG game, which will be taking place on the 29th of April at 8 o'clock at the Emirates. An Arsenal side that have already beaten PSG this season. You know, you look at that Real Madrid game home and away. Declan Rice was the best player on the pitch over two legs. Stepped up with two unbelievable free kicks and the defensive display he put on at the Bernabeu, marking Jude Bellingham out of the game, making some really decisive tackles, spraying it out to the flanks to start counter-attacks. And he's really grown on me as a player. I thought Declan Rice was a top-class player, but now he's getting to that argument of, is he world-class? When you put in these performances in the Champions League quarterfinals, home and away, at the Bernabeu and at the Emirates against Real Madrid, it's very difficult, very, very difficult for people to critique and criticize at that level. If he goes on and wins a major honor this season with Arsenal, which would be the Champions League, I think a lot of people's opinions would change on Declan Rice. But the fact that he hasn't won anything yet with Arsenal, and the only trophy he's won was at West Ham, a lot of people still criticize him. But I think it's very, very difficult to. You know, you look at their recent run, beating Fulham 2-1 at the Emirates, drawing at Goodison Park, beating Real Madrid, drawing at the Emirates again, and beating Real Madrid again. It wouldn't surprise me if Arsenal drew to Ipswich, beat Ipswich, drew to Palace, and then beat PSG, drew to Bournemouth, and then beat PSG. You know, PSG right now, what makes this Champions League campaign this season so special is that PSG could do a treble, Inter Milan could do a treble. They're still in the Coppa Italia. You know, Barcelona are in the Copa del Rey final against Real Madrid. The fact that Barcelona, PSG, and Inter Milan could all do a treble, and Arsenal are going for their first Champions League, it's honestly remarkable. I want to talk about PSG because they have got a devastating midfield. I'll be honest, their midfield is unbelievable. Neves, Fabian Ruiz, you know, and Vitinha. You know, this was the lineup they played against Aston Villa. It's a very, very strong lineup. It's arguably right now the best fullback pairing in Europe. And funny enough, both their fullbacks did score against Aston Villa. Nuno Mendes and Hakimi are in unbelievable form. With the balance of that midfield of Fabian Ruiz, Vitinha, and Neves, and the depth they've got up front, I still don't know why Desiree Doué is not starting. I don't mind Bradley Barcola, but I think Doué is just better. I think he's got the X factor in him. Ousmane Dembele this season is on a path of absolute excellence, scoring goals. And Kvaratskhelia, however you pronounce his name, we all know his quality. But PSG, they've been in the final in the last, what, 6 years ago against Bayern Munich. They made the same amount of finals against Arsenal. They're still on their first Champions League, trying to win their first Champions League. They do score a lot of goals, but they do also concede a lot. To concede 4 goals over 2 legs against Aston Villa will give Arsenal huge, huge confidence that they can be a threat. They did concede against Liverpool. They didn't concede against Brest in the Champions League. They did concede against Stuttgart, though. They did concede, obviously, 2 at the Emirates. They conceded against Manchester City. They conceded against Bayern Munich. They concede a lot of goals throughout this season, and considering that Arsenal have only conceded something like 7 Champions League goals, I think Arsenal are probably the best defensive team left in the competition. We all know Inter Milan's strengths at the back. Inzaghi is a fantastic tactician. But defensively, I don't see PSG scoring 4 or 5 goals against Arsenal. I just don't see it happening. And you look at this game in terms of if Arsenal get a good lead, if they go, 2 or 3-0 up in the first leg, I think it's done. I just don't see how, bearing in mind this is a team that are doing it without their first choice left-sided centre-back in Gabriel. They're doing it without their normal striker in Kai Havertz. And there's actually rumours that Kai Havertz will be back before the end of the season now. I actually believe that Arsenal will get past PSG. They've already beaten them this season. They'll have confidence off that Real Madrid game. And knowing the fact that how strong they are defensively, Jakub Kiwior has come into that team and been a revelation at centre-back. He's been unbelievable. So there will be a lot of confidence from the Arsenal team, but there, of course, will be a lot of confidence from PSG that they have been in this position recently before. I just don't see, on current form, how they go and score 4 goals or 5 goals past this Arsenal team. They only scored 1 past Liverpool, and you could argue that in this competition, Arsenal have been better defensively. They only conceded 1 goal against PSV away, which was an absolute lapse of concentration again. You go back through their Champions League fixtures, clean sheets against Girona, clean sheets against Shakhtar Donetsk, clean sheets against Dynamo Zagreb, clean sheets against... sorry, they didn't get a clean sheet against Girona. They kept the clean sheet against Shakhtar Donetsk, a clean sheet against Monaco, a clean sheet against... there was another game in there as well. PSG, of course, clean sheet. They only conceded 1 to Inter Milan. They only conceded 2 to PSV in the second leg, 1 away to Sporting when they had Victor Gyökeres absolutely fit and firing. I just don't see, if PSG are going to go through, it's going to be a very low scoring game. They might win 2-1, but you're not going to score the amount of goals you did against Aston Villa against this Arsenal team because they've just got a lot more quality at the back. You're comparing Konsa to Saliba. You're comparing Matty Cash to the likes of Miles Lewis, Skelly and Timber. And that's another thing. Their fullback pairing right now is one of the best in Europe. You would only argue that maybe Barcelona and PSG have better all-round fullbacks. But as a defensive pairing, Miles Lewis, Skelly isn't afraid of the big occasion. He's not afraid to step up and deliver. And how many times did Vinny Jr. actually get past Timber? 0 times, I think someone said earlier. He doesn't get beat. Let's just be brutally honest. He doesn't get beat. And you couple that in with Partey's was a very, very strong performance. Now, of course, he will be out the first leg. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes in. It probably will be Jorginho. There has been talk of playing Miles Lewis Skelly in midfield and bringing in Ben White. You look at that Real Madrid bench. He's got quality on it. Arda Güler, Brahim Diaz, Endrick, Modric, but they only scored 1 goal. This Real Madrid team, with probably a £400 million up front in Bellingham Jr., Vinny Jr., Rodrigo, and Kylian Mbappe, but they did absolutely nothing. A midfield double pivot of Federico Valverde and Tchouameni, but they did nothing. How many times have these Real Madrid players won Champions Leagues? Luka Modric's won 5, but they had no answer. They couldn't break down this Arsenal team. And based on that, I don't think that Real Madrid, in terms of overall quality, I think they have a much better quality squad of PSG. The PSG this season are different without Kylian Mbappe. But I still think, based on all of this, that it will be Arsenal that will be progressing. I'm not going to lie to you. I do think Arsenal will make the final. And I'm sticking with my prediction. I do think it will be an Arsenal-Barcelona final. Rewind it back to 2005 all over again. It's going to be a very interesting time. And of course, the Europa League, Tottenham against Bodo Glimt in the semi-final and Athletic Bilbao against Man United. Make sure you go down and drop a like on the video. Make sure you do hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all soon. I am out.